So hello, on this channel we talk about independent spirituality and folk magic for free spirits. My name is Aster, I am a Brazilian folk witch, astrologer and tarot reader, and today we are bringing yet another episode of Spooky Tales. If you don't know what this is about, this is a series that I have over here on the channel in which the subscribers send over their paranormal experiences with spirits and whatnot, and I read the stories for you firsthand and I react to them in camera. Also, I try to advise and try to guess what exactly happened in each story, and if you have any paranormal thing that you have experienced or somebody in your family, like there's an urban legend that goes generation after generation and everybody in your family knows about it. Anyway, if you have any spooky tales of your own to share, don't hesitate to send them to the email address appearing on the screen right now, asterperpetua@gmail.com. It's going to be a pleasure to react to your story for a next episode. So without any further ado, let's dive right in. Hello, Aster. Hello. You can call me Shell. I seem to be a magnet for spooky things. It's not really spooky to me anymore. Anyway, here's a few of the more interesting ones I have experienced. Okay, let's take a look. They sent 4 little events. Tale 1. This one night, me and my family were exchanging spooky tales. It was getting late, and one of my sisters was tired and ready for bed, but was too scared to sleep on her own and asked me if I wouldn't mind top and tailing with her for that night. So I did. I started off facing out into the room, but when I saw a solid-looking black shadow hovering about, I turned around to face the wall, ignoring it, thinking it was most likely just my imagination after what we had all been talking about. However, the next day I heard the sister I had been top and tailing with telling our other sister about the black shadow she had seen in her room, and I was like, wait, what? You saw that too? I turned around thinking it was my imagination. LOL. So yeah, dark figures in the shadows. Tale 2. Me and my dad were downstairs talking about my little sister who was upstairs by herself. Suddenly we heard very clear footsteps coming down the stairs. Thinking it was my sister, we stopped talking, as you do, but a few minutes passed and no sister. Me and my dad exchanged a look, both of us wondering where she was, but quickly realized it was one of the resistant spooks and went back to chatting like nothing happened. It seems to me that this family is already used to this and they don't even get bothered anymore. Tale 3. This time I was watching Gotham? Not sure how to pronounce it, but anyway, it's a series, a TV show, I believe. I was watching Gotham with my dad one night when a kid's sippy cup on the coffee table started shocking by itself. What? My dad looked at me and said, "You seen that, right?" I was like, yeah. Then the cup jumped a few inches into the air and the lid popped off. Is that so? My dad said, "Take that in the kitchen, I ain't touching it." So objects being knocked over, it can happen, it depends, it can happen, like light objects and all, but the cup jumping into the air and opening up the lid and all, I'm not really sure. And Mr. or Mrs. Shell, how about you watching? Do you think these stories are true or not? Let me know in the comments. I am getting suspicious after Tale 3. And Tale 4. A more recent experience was at my nan's place. I was visiting her with my dad and his dog, Loki. This day, Loki was very restless and didn't want to enter the living. Enter the living? The dog enters the living? I hope you meant the living room. The dog was even refusing to come get his treats, which is unlike him. Then we heard this lead fall to the ground, and suddenly Loki was staring at something, growling and shaking. At this point, my nan told us she's been hearing random bumps and bangs around her flat. So I got up, opened the windows and grabbed one of her bells and did some sound cleansing. Loki followed me from one room to another. Once I'd finished, He was happy to come join us in the living room and had his treats and settled down. That night back home, I was getting my PJs on when I noticed the cord on my pentacle necklace had been snapped in several places. I'm surprised I didn't see the pentacle. Later that night, while turning out the lights, ready for bed, something hit my feet. It was an art print with a protection spell written on the back. I took note of that. Then the next morning, I pulled an oracle card and it was a pentacle with the keyword protection. I was like, okay. All I could think of was my Nan. So I did a little protection spell and made a new cord for the pentacle and gave that to my Nan, along with some protection stones for each of her rooms. They were spare and not being used by myself. Things are nice and quiet in her flat again now, and I'm no longer getting protection hints. Okay, this fourth story is more interesting. I think that there was something at your Nan's place, and it probably followed you home. Sound is something that you can use for cleansing. I have used bells, for example, for like when I had the haunting while I was an au pair. It was the first Spooky Tales video that I have published. I can link it up in the cards and down in the description. So I did use bells to deal with that situation. So you were probably able to kick the spirit out, but they were waiting for you outside and they followed you home. They were not happy, huh? All those signs and hints at protection. So yes, whenever we interact with something that doesn't have our best interest at heart, our protections will like snap or break or fall. So it's important to do a good cleansing all around, especially using smoke. Smoke is my favorite. It is my favorite way of cleansing. So open the windows, cleanse it all, open all doors and windows, cleanse the house down, and put up protections right after. There you go. Okay, Shell, thank you for your story. Let's take a look at the next one. That's a short one. Good. Hello. Hello. My name is Fanny, and you have permission to say my name. Good. I love your videos, and they have helped me a lot. Thank you. Thank you for being here, Fanny. Before I start, you should know that English is my second language and I can write mistakes. Don't worry, okay? It's fine. The story goes like this. This happened before I started with witchcraft. My mom and grandma can see and hear spirits and ghosts. I can't see them or hear them yet, but I can feel their presence. Once I felt like there was a creature standing by my wardrobe. It was slightly confused but looked straight at me. Don't take it as a nice spirit. It wasn't. It was trying to pretend like it was kind. It gave masculine vibes, but I don't know. I couldn't get rid of it, but I tried to communicate with it with sound, with white sound. It didn't work. It liked to be under my bed and making me sleep worse. Once I started with witchcraft, it disappeared, or at least I think so. I don't sleep better, but it isn't communicating anymore, so I guess that's good. Thank you for reading it. I love your videos. Okay, thank you, Fanny. Thank you for sharing this story. So, I think you kind of saw this spirit. You said that you're not able to see them, but yes, you are saying that the spirit looked straight at you. So yeah, you saw it, right? You saw that. So okay, that's interesting. Probably once you started your practice, you started learning about protection and performing protective measures around your room, around your house. So that spirit kind of had to go. It could have been an obsessor, as we call them in Brazilian folk magic, a spirit that just wants to suck out your energy. Could have been one of those. So, especially because it interfered with your sleep patterns, I'm glad that you were able to get rid of it, because it wouldn't have helped you in any kind of way, especially if it was messing with your sleep. So yes, it's all good when it ends good, right? Thank you for your story, Fanny. Let's take a look at the next one. Hi, Aster. Hello. You can use my first name, which is Nikki. I'm from Colorado, US. This is a story from the 90s. We love a story from the 90s. Let's see. In my 20s, I lived in a townhome with my 8-year-old daughter and a roommate who had a year-old son. It had a very high 2-story ceiling in the living room and dining room, and it had a catwalk on the second floor connecting one side of the house to the other. This was an open walkway with thin bars and wide spaces in between. One afternoon, my roommate and I were helping her son learn to walk, and he was going in between us while we sat on the floor. On the way back to his mom, he looked up and saw something that scared him, and he jumped into his mom's lap. I immediately looked up and saw a hooded figure run the length of the catwalk from her room directly into mine. Not just a glimpse out of the corner of my eye, but straight on for at least 3 seconds in bright daylight. It was about 5.5 feet tall and was wearing a hooded robe. Its concealed arms went back and forth with each step, just like a human would. The bottom of the cloak was just past what I assumed were its knees. There were no legs, just a wispy smoke-like material. It wasn't completely smoke or completely solid. It was a mix of both. Yeah, you saw a spirit. The best way to describe this entity is that it looked exactly like the stereotypical Grim Reaper. Cool. But I got the impression that it was a lesser demon. There was no face, just empty blackness, and it hurried itself right into my room. I was not happy that I still had to sleep in there after seeing this creepy thing. We had lots of weird, unexplained activities since we had moved in. My roommate's dog always barked at this little door in my room that went into an attic space. There were lots of knockings on the walls, writing on the mirror after taking a shower. Things would move as well. Thankfully, we only lived there for another year, and then my daughter and I moved into a relatively quiet apartment. Fortunately, I haven't seen anything like that again, but I don't rule it out for the future, especially as I get deeper into the craft. Thanks for sharing, Nikki. Thank you for sharing, Nikki. I mean, this was an interesting vision, wasn't it? That's interesting for sure. I mean, usually small kids, they are able to see spirits and experience beyond the veil in a much more open way that we adults can do. So it really surprises me that you were able to see the spirit as well. And that door to an attic in your room, probably there was something up there. It's a pity that, from what I understood, you were not a practitioner back in the 90s. I think it would have been even more interesting if you could have explored that place that you lived with a roommate. If you had back then the knowledge that you have now. This is still an interesting story. Me, for the time being, I don't have the ability of seeing spirits. I do feel presences and I get voices, but I don't see them for the time being. But I don't see them for now, but I have heard from people who have like like usually they see spirits and it's part of what they do and they're used to it, and they say that there is this kind of smoky thing around the figure, around the silhouette. So even though it's kind of a clear image, there's kind of a smoke surrounding them, and it is like what you have described here. So interesting. You had lots of company in that apartment apparently. Or that house. I'm not sure if it was... yeah, it was a house. So, Nikki, thank you so much for sharing your story. It was short, but it was interesting nonetheless. Let's take a look at the next one. Hello, Aster. Hello. My name is Leilani. You can use my name. Or if you want to give me a cool celebrity name, that is fine too. I think you have a pretty badass name, so I'm gonna stick to it. I am from Miami, Florida, USA. I have spent much of my life in South Carolina, however. I lived in Beaufort, South Carolina as a teenager. I went to a place on St. Helena Island that we called the Fort. It was officially known as the Fort Fremont Preserve. It was very haunted. Okay, I have to say something. Many people that watch my channel and interact with me and send over stories like these, they are from the US, but I have have to admit, I have never been to the United States, so I don't really know how to pronounce names or where stuff is located geographically, so please bear with me. I went there with my friends when I was 19 years old. Getting back to the story. I went there with my friends when I was 19 years old. My friends were a couple, the guy named Chris and the girl named Holly. It was nighttime and the area is very deserted and spooky at night. But I had been there many times before, so I was not afraid. Holly got spooked as soon as we arrived and decided to stay outside with my dog, who we had brought along, but she also refused to enter the grounds. If the dog didn't want to go, you already had a sign, okay? Just saying. Chris and I entered the grounds and in the fort to explore. He was holding the flashlight and I walked in behind him. We explored several chambers and hallways. One of these opened to a larger room. I immediately saw a young man and older boy sitting in the middle of the room, dressed in Civil War soldier uniform. He was sitting there as if he was sitting by a fire. When we entered, he looked up at us, almost as if annoyed that we had disturbed him. But of course, this man, the man is at his place enjoying himself by the fire, and then all of a sudden some strangers come in with a flashlight. I would be bothered, so I get him. I told Chris to stop and not walk there. We needed to stay close to the walls. If he walked through the middle of the room, he would walk directly through the boy. Asked me why, and I explained that there was a boy there. He laughed and thought that I was trying to scare him. I told him I was very serious, but he didn't believe me and walked through anyway. As soon as Chris got too close, the boy vanished. Only a second later, Chris jumped up and yelled, then took off running. Yes, he took the flashlight with him. I had to feel my way out in the dark, which was very scary. In the dark, I felt that there were many presences around me, as if I was in a crowded room. Whoa. When I finally got out, I felt strongly like I was being watched from the windows. I reached Holly and Chris. Holly said she had seen eyes in the windows while we were gone. I asked Chris why he had ran and left me in the dark. He said that when he walked through, something had hit him in the back of the head. I told him, I bet so. It's not nice to walk through people. I did more research and found that a ghost has been reported to haunt the grounds of the fort. They call him the Gray Man. He is a young man in Civil War uniform who protects the fort. That must be who I saw. And he was not happy at all when my friend walked through him. Serves him right for not believing me. Yeah, so many spirits, they get attached to a certain place, and this could have been the case with this Civil War man, the Gray Man. Of course, he was not happy to be bothered, and I mean, you don't need to go to a haunted place at night in order to feel things or see things. I think that going at night adds an extra layer of unnecessary feelings, such as fear. It is better to be able to see things in the clear day, in broad daylight. But this is an interesting story nonetheless. It gave me a little bit of an urbex kind of vibe, you know, those abandoned places. I love to watch videos of abandoned places, and whenever I have the chance, I like to go into abandoned places myself. There's something about them that is just so fascinating. I can't really explain what it is. So Leilani, thank you for your story. Let's take a look at another one. Hey girl, hello. I am enjoying your channel. My name is Danny. I'm a middle-aged woman, and here's one of my many spooky stories. English is my second language, so bear with me, no problem. Let's go. First, a bit of my background to understand who I am. I grew up in a strict Catholic family, and as such, many things were forbidden or feared and quite often never explained. I always had strange dreams that were and still are very often a warning warning of what might come, what is happening, or a message from those who already crossed over. These things are quite unsettling for a child, especially if the parents aren't really helping. Like what they said was, go pray or read the Bible. Never really solved anything for me. Over the years, I became quite spiritual and looked into many things to find answers, but I don't really follow any particular religion, although I try to respect most. When I moved into my apartment many years ago, it became clear to me it's gonna be challenging because I can also be sensitive to energies of other people or objects, meaning I would dream dreams of my downstairs neighbor, which was annoying, especially if he was drunk and was dreaming bullshit. So she was able to pick up on other people's dreams. Alright, if I understood correctly, that's very impressive. I don't think I have heard about that before. She continues, I had to learn how to close and protect my energy, definitely. Because I live on the top floor of an old building, my apartment can get really hot in the summer, so I would take my mattress to the living room and sleep on the floor where it's a bit cooler. In the beginning, I couldn't sleep well because my dreams would get weird since I slept in front of my TV and a mirror, which can be both portals. So being a Virgo sun, I did extensive research as how to close them, and nothing really resonated with me as an Aquarius moon. I thought, fuck it, and did the most simple thing and cover both with a scarf and went to bed. So cover the mirror and the TV with a scarf in order to kind of close them. And that worked great. Normally it's just black and white or at rainy night dream. Now I found myself on a sunny day in a warm, welcoming and colorful house. Okay, that changed a lot in the dream. Before I could explore and the doorbell rang, I opened the front door and there was a handsome man standing there. He was barefoot, wearing only jeans and had no face or hair. All across his bare chest was a giant human eye without eyelashes and any color of iris, all just flesh color. Ew. That's kind of unsettling. Like what you can see on a Barbie doll, but it was a real eye, only was a part of the guy's chest. He looked at me and even though he didn't have eyes or lips, he said, "We can still see you," and walked away. Wow. I closed the door and thought that's interesting, and the bell rang again. And again, a handsome, faceless man in jeans with a giant real eye across his chest stood at the front door and said, "We can still see you," and went away. So he came twice at the door of the dream to say, "Hey, we are big brothers watching you." This is the spiritual 1984. Pay attention, girl. Se liga, hein? I wasn't afraid or anything, I just thought that it was interesting. It was more like nice try, like, oh, nice try. You need to do better next time. And yes, I figured out how to close mirrors and TV screens. Hope you enjoyed my story and I'll send you some more. Blessings to everyone. So Danny, thank you for the story. This was really interesting. So yeah, it is important to lock mirrors. I have to admit that I didn't know about TV screens. I didn't know that they could be portals. Maybe because I don't own a TV. I'm not interested in having TVs. So I didn't know they could be portals. So on my Patreon, there's a tutorial on how to lock mirrors, how I do it. And locking mirrors is very simple, actually. And this was interesting, like the spiritual coming to you to let you know twice, okay? We can still see you. That scarf you've put there, it's too thin. We can't come through, but we are still taking a look at you. So this was a cool story. And thank you so much for sending it over, Danny. I think that tonight I am a little bit quieter than usual because for Spooky Tales moments, I'm usually very like high energy and excited. But over here it's like past 10 p.m. and one of my flatmates is sleeping, so I tried to keep it down a little bit. But still, I had a good time. And please, if you have paranormal experiences to share, don't hesitate to send them over to my email, okay? asterperpetua@gmail.com, because then your story could be the next one to be featured on a Spooky Tales episode, okay? And remember, practice makes perfect. So let's get witching and let's banish all those nosy spirits, okay?